everyone. Thanks for joining me. It's Tuesday, and that means it's time for Tuesdays with Ted. My name is Floyd Pönitz, president of Seventh-day Adventist Kinship International, and Tuesdays is a time where I create a video and share it with you guys, and we talk with Ted N.C. Wilson, president of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. For a long time now, we've been trying to build bridges and connect with the General Conference, with Ted Wilson, and we have been nothing but ignored. And he creates sermons that talk about us, but not with us. So Tuesdays with Ted is a time where we can actually share videos widely and what I'd like to talk with Ted about. So we'll see. Hopefully he's listening in, and we'll hear today's video. Kinship has been trying to build this bridge for many years, and it was like 45 years ago almost now that Kinship had its first camp meeting or first gathering of LGBTQ Adventists. And we actually asked for permission from the then president of General Conference, which was Ted Wilson's father, Neil Wilson, and we asked permission if we could have some clergy, which were professors from Andrews University and pastors from the Sligo Church, come and speak with us and get to know us and answer questions for us and with us and just dialogue. And the meeting was between Ronald Lawson, Kinship member, and Duncan Eva, who was the assistant or the secretary to Neil Wilson. And permission was given, and so they met in Payson, Arizona, for a week. And it was actually a very fruitful, good meeting. And all but one of the clergy that came in to meet with us became really strong allies, and they gave a report back to the General Conference saying that they suggested the General Conference actually set up a committee and talk with Kinship on a regular basis and get to know us and just dialogue back and forth. The only person on that clergy team that didn't go back with a positive or a good report was Colin Cook, who was the founder of Quest International, the change ministry that was happening at that time that the General Conference was supporting via tithe money and other monies, donations, offerings from members. And they were sending people to this Quest Center to change their homosexuality. Well, Colin got caught with his pants down, literally. He was giving long hugs and just very inappropriate with the young guys that were coming to the Quest Center. And so after this happened, the church kind of got upset for Kinship for pointing out this kind of abuse. And so one of the presidents, I think it was maybe, I'm not sure if it was Pearson. I don't remember who the president was exactly, but he wrote a memo saying that no General Conference or church employee was allowed to go and participate in a Kinship camp meeting or anything like that in the future. So that was kind of unfortunate. And but anyway, so here we are 45 years later, still trying to open the channels of communication to dialogue with the General Conference. I'd like to go back in my childhood just a little bit. No one that I know actually chooses to be queer, to be gay, to be bi, to be trans. It's just something that you either realize or feel at some point, and it's a part of you. It's just like your eye color or which hand you're writing with, your left or your right hand. You're born a certain way, wired a certain way, and that's it. So, blue eye color is not a sin. Left-handedness is not a sin. Being gay is not a sin. But, as a kid, I felt different at an early age. And, this was before the internet, before we had cell phones. And so I would look in anything I could, and I looked up things in the dictionary, actually. And when I was at school, in the encyclopedia, to try to find out what words meant, like male, female, sex. And in that definition, it would give me another word, and I'd look up that word. And at some point, I realized that homosexual was probably something that defined my feelings. But at the same time, I heard things from the church that said that it was bad, and it wasn't anything that I did. It was a feeling that I had. And most sins are when you actually commit a sin, meaning you've done something. But I hadn't committed anything. I just had this feeling inside of me. One of the books that we had in our home library, along with all of Ellen White's testimonies and the Red books and things like that, was a book by Harold Shryock, MD, called On Becoming a Woman. And this was a book that was given to my sister when she was a teenager to teach her about sex and what the church taught about on becoming a woman. And I read that, and I was like, this is a really crazy book. It said some really bad things about homosexuality. And then when I was 13 and I went to camp meeting in Keene, Texas, my parents bought this book for me, On Becoming a Man, Harold Shryock, MD. And it was a book, and it's full of pictures and everything about becoming an adult, a man. So I pulled this off my shelf a while ago, just to talk about it. And inside of it was actually something from the Reader's Digest that I had cut out and stapled. And it was an article called I Am Joe's Man Gland. And I glanced through this article just now, and it does a much better job of talking about sex and adolescence and that kind of thing than the book, the Adventist book. Sorry about that. But it talks about testosterone and semen and just the development and all those kinds of things that made a whole lot more sense than this book here. I immediately looked at this book and looked for things that talked about masturbation, homosexuality, and actually I found it. There is a chapter called Some Questions Answered, and that's chapter 6. And if you're drinking, I just wanted to show off my kinship mug again. If you have that there, feel free to take a sip of your hot chocolate or coffee and let's talk. So chapter 6 actually talks about homosexual tendencies, and everything is about you as a teenager being approached by an older adult who has these perverted sexual whatevers. And so actually what they're talking about is something more in line with pedophilia than homosexuality. And, it talks in here earlier about erections and masturbation. I think it was in chapter 5, so you will understand. And, the embarrassment of having an erection. And erections are only to be used, more so to speak, once you're married and with your wife. And if you happen to experience an erection when you're not married, don't touch it, don't do anything. Ejaculation is only through natural emissions and not by anything manual that you're doing or thoughts that you're having. So, of course, when it talks about this, the guy is going to actually, what is masturbation? And, try it out, and talks about your life force and et cetera, et cetera. So I think Ellen White was just as messed up and wrong about the subject of masturbation, along with John Harvey Kellogg and Sylvester Graham and all the other. It was just a not very sex positive time. So So they wrote this book, and like I said, if you have this book, burn it. No, I'm not into burning books. I'm just kidding. But do not pass this on to your children or anyone else who is supposed to learn about sex from this book, because it is very, very damaging, very mentally. You get scared. Am I doing this? Am I a homosexual? Am I a masturbator? Um, Very bad book. So that, along with, now I can understand why Coming Out Ministries is so messed up, because they probably grew up with this book as well, and got their ideas about masturbation, homosexuality, pornography, whatever, from this book here, and only realize that it's very unhealthy, um, and they don't see the positive side. Um, Masturbation actually is very good for your prostate. Prostate massage, etc., can be very good. So, very healthy is what I'm talking about. So, there's another side that this book does not cover. And so, yeah, yeah. I can understand. Ted Wilson is older. Coming Out Ministries leaders are older. A lot of the General Conference is just like the American government. It's a bunch of old, white-haired people who grew up in an era where sex was very shameful, and they don't know how to talk about homosexuality. So, Ted, I feel sorry for you. Actually, yeah, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. Uh, but please reach out. Please talk to us. We don't need to talk about masturbation. We can talk about homosexuality, um, our journeys, our experiences with it. And so, anyway, that's this week's Tuesdays with Ted. Just wanted to talk about that book, On Becoming a Man. Later on, they came out with another one, another sex book, God Created Sex, I think, or something like that. Don't remember the author. I didn't buy that book. I was already a bit older, and and in college at that time. So there are some great books that are out there. If you want to know more about homosexuality, you can read books like Unclobber by Colby Martin. You can read The Bible and LGBTQ Adventist, written by Pastor Alicia Johnston, former Adventist pastor. And there's just a lot of resources out there you can find on the internet, on YouTube, or you can email me and let's talk about this. info@sdakinship.org, or you can follow us on social media, the @SDAkinship, and be happy to discuss any and all of this with you. So have a great rest of the Tuesday. Take a sip of your drink, and I will see you next week. Remember that God loves you unconditionally, just as you are. You're not broken. You don't need fixing, not from the General Conference, not from Coming Out Ministries, not from any other group. God is there walking with you just as you are. So see you next week. Take care. Is there anybody